Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Crack Grade B and welcome to today's session. So first of all, if you guys can help me and tell me whether the screen is clearly visible to you and my voice is clearly audible or not. Let's wait for 1 minute. Okay, then let others also come. Then we'll start today's session. So in today's session, what we're going to do is we'll be doing economy and financial news from September 1st to 10th. Okay, so we'll do the usual process, which includes first we will cover the circulars, okay, and then we'll focus on the economy news. Hi everyone. Okay, I'll try to be bilingual. Okay. So as I was saying, we'll cover September 1st to 10th and we'll start with circulars. Circulars, as I've already told you, is very important for you to understand each and every concept. Then only we'll be able to much better remember the circulars. Okay, and afterwards we'll focus on the economic news. Okay. Because there are some other responsibilities also, na? And don't worry, we will cover this current affairs before your NABARD examination. Okay, anyways, it's gonna take 3 days only. And also, since September is ending today, so most probably Monday, Tuesday, the September current affairs will also be completed. So you don't have to worry about that. July is also already covered. Okay, so if you go back into the session, you will find July videos also. Any more doubts anyone have? You can ask me first related to preparation. Then we'll start. Okay, so we have already covered especially the ESI finance current affairs, and we are on point and on time with respect to the recent NABARD examination. So just cover these aspects. Most of the current affairs that you will be able to do is already completed in PIB as well as ESI current affairs sessions. Okay. What else should you read, especially in current affairs? Na? If you read these and PIB, most of your current is already done. Okay, the rest you should focus on doing GA, general awareness, which includes sports, days, books, as well as some other news, okay, that are relevant from phase 1 perspective. But from phase 2 perspective, if you cover these videos, most of the content is already prepared. Okay. So let's start. So we'll start with the usual, which is circulars. And don't worry, we have just 3 circular news. Okay, so there's not much in there. So first one is that RBI is allowing pre-sanctioned. First of all, what's the organization? RBI is allowing pre-sanctioned credit lines via UPI. Okay, so here the main concept is of credit lines. Credit line, while you might not have heard about credit line, but you might have heard about line of credit. Okay, so it's a kind of revolving credit mechanism through which, you know, if we see the basic definition of line of credit is that you have a particular amount of credit, pre-sanctioned credit, that you can utilize to do, and you can utilize as your own money, and whatever you utilize, you pay interest on the basis of that. Okay, and whenever you pay that, then you can again take that money. Okay, so let's understand it a bit more. So we are talking about line of credit. Okay, so it is also known as revolving credit. And what is revolving credit? So suppose bank has provided you line of credit of 1 lakh rupees. Okay, and you have taken out, or you can say you have borrowed 50,000 from that. Okay, then the limit right now is only 50,000. Okay, 50,000 is remaining that you can borrow further, and afterwards if you repaid it back, then that, you know, line of credit again becomes the same amount. This is the concept of revolving credit. It is most certainly utilized in credit cards as well as obviously line of credit. Okay, so you might be asking, if the concept is same, then what's the difference between credit card as well as line of credit? Okay, so the basic mechanism is almost similar if we talk about in terms of, you know, getting money as a credit and spending money for any other purposes. But the key difference between credit card as well as line of credit is that in credit card there is a system of reward points, okay, which is absent in line of credit. Okay, in credit card you can directly in person pay or do some transactions at the POS machines, okay, which you cannot do in case of line of credit, which you only have to do through online banking or something other else. Okay, so to remove such type of deficiencies, RBI is now actually focusing upon providing pre-sanctioned credit lines so that you can use it through your UPI application. This is what the circular is all about. RBI is saying that we are asking scheduled commercial banks to provide pre-sanctioned credit line so that their customers can utilize that credit via UPI. Because as you all know, UPI right now, you know, whenever you do payment via UPI, you are utilizing your existing amount which is present either in your bank account or in your wallets. Okay, it is the existing amount, or it is the amount that you have saved within your bank or wallets. Okay, but what if bank actually provides you, let's say suppose 1 lakh of credit, pre-sanctioned credit, which you can utilize via UPI. So this is the whole circular all about. Any confusion, at least in understanding the concept of revolving credit or in difference between credit card as well as line of credit? So I'll explain this also in Hindi. Okay, तो आपको पता होगा कि लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट को हम रिवॉल्विंग क्रेडिट भी बोलते हैं. ओके, रिवॉल्विंग क्रेडिट का कॉन्सेप्ट क्रेडिट कार्ड में यूज होता है। ओके, क्रेडिट कार्ड आप कैसे यूटिलाइज करते हो? क्रेडिट कार्ड में आपको 1 लाख की लिमिट दी जाती है। ओके, और उसके बाद आप उस 1 लाख की लिमिट में जितना पैसा आप बोरो करना चाहो उतना आप बोरो कर सकते हो। आप 1 लाख से ज़्यादा बोरो नहीं कर सकते, आप 1 लाख से ज़्यादा ट्रांजैक्शन नहीं कर सकते। ओके, और आपका जो रीपेमेंट होता है वो आपने जितना पैसा यूटिलाइज किया है उसके बेसिस पे होता है। ठीक है, मान लो आपने 50,000 1 लाख के क्रेडिट कार्ड की लिमिट पे खर्च किया, तो आपका जब बिल बन के आएगा वो 50,000 का आएगा, और मिनिमम बैलेंस जो आएगा आपको पे करना होगा वो भी 50,000 के बेसिस पे बन के आएगा। ओके, सो इसका मतलब है, और ये सेम कॉन्सेप्ट लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट में भी चलता है। ओके, लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट में मान लो आपको, और लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट कार्ड में एक चीज में बहुत डिफरेंट है, और ये डिफरेंस आता है, क्रेडिट कार्ड हम मोस्टली यूज करते हैं रोजमर्रा के ट्रांजैक्शंस के लिए। ओके, बट लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट का कॉन्सेप्ट इसलिए दिया गया, मान लो आपको बहुत बड़े ट्रांजैक्शंस करने हो, या फिर मान लो आपको ज़्यादा पैसा चाहिए और ज़्यादा आपको टाइम चाहिए रीपेमेंट का। ओके, मान लो आपको एक दुकान सेटअप करनी है तो आपको कम से कम 2 लाख या 3 लाख का अमाउंट चाहिए। ओके, तो ऐसे अमाउंट को क्रेडिट के बेसिस पे बिना लोन लिए आप कैसे पा सकते हो बैंक से? तब वहाँ पे लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट का कॉन्सेप्ट आता है। ठीक है, और लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट के कॉन्सेप्ट भी क्रेडिट कार्ड के जैसे ही सिमिलर है। 3 लाख की मान लो आपको क्रेडिट लिमिट दी है, उसमें आपने जितना बोरो करना है, जितना यूटिलाइज करना है 3 लाख के अंदर अंदर आप कर सकते हो, और 3 लाख के अंदर आपने जितना पैसा लिया है उसी के बेसिस पे आपका इंटरेस्ट बनेगा। ओके, उसी के बेसिस पे आपको मिनिमम पे देना पड़ेगा। सो ये कॉन्सेप्ट है लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट का। समझ में आया? इज दिस क्लियर टू एवरीवन, टू ऑल दोज हु वांटेड मी टू बी बाइलिंगुअल? अगर कोई डाउट है तो आप प्लीज पूछ लीजिए। ओके, मैं दोबारा एक्सप्लेन कर दूंगा, बट स्टैटिक समझना वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। चलो एक बार देख लेते हैं इसको। ओके, तो इसमें लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट के अलग अलग फीचर्स दे रखे हैं जो मैंने आपको अभी जस्ट बताया, एंड आई हैव जस्ट टोल्ड यू all the features that of line of credit. Okay, what are you asking about? What is BG? Are you talking about bank guarantee sign? So bank guarantee is a very different concept. Okay, bank guarantee is a very specific concept also. And bank guarantee is mostly, if you take an example of, let's say, suppose exports. Okay, and suppose you're a buyer, you send back a receipt from the bank. Okay, there's a transaction, buyer, seller. So what usually happens, okay, suppose say buyer is right now not able to pay some amount of money, okay, but buyer actually, the bank of the buyer provides a guarantee, okay, a guarantee slip to the seller which says that if the goods are received, okay, bank will pay to you such type of amount. So this is the concept of bank guarantee, which is a conditional thing also for a specific thing, whereas line of credit is a very different concept, which, you know, if you consider the difference between bank guarantee, first of all, the credit is with the customer. Okay, customer has the choice to do any amount or any type of consumption. Okay, here the interest is based on not the whole amount, which was in the case of bank guarantee, but on the borrowed amount. Here is the concept, and it includes the concept of repayment, whereas bank guarantee, you have to, do a bit of contractual agreement with the bank and you pay, or you suppose say you have to pay a goods of worth 100 rupees, then you will get 94 rupees and 6 rupees will be charged by the bank. So these two are very different concepts. Okay. So in terms of features of line of credit, as I've already told you, whatever amount that you will utilize, the interest will be charged on the basis of that, and you can easily pay back the line of credit amount, whatever you have borrowed, and also with the incorporation of UPI in terms of line of credit, okay, it will lead to innovation in various financial sector space. Okay, and this will obviously increase financial inclusion in the country. Credit card has already been, made interoperable with UPI, as you've seen, RuPay credit cards linked with UPI. So naturally, the next step would have been line of credit being interoperable with UPI. Okay, let's move on to the next news, which is about trade settlement in 1 hour. SEBI plans early 24 rollout. Okay, so here we are discussing about the concept of trade settlement. So I'll try to first explain in English, then I'll explain the concept of trade settlement in Hindi also to other viewers. So trade settlement, okay, let's understand the whole practice, what happens in the stock market where we are talking about trade settlement. Okay, so in stock market, as all of you know, okay, we buy and sell shares. Okay, so somebody is buying and somebody is selling those shares. Okay, so somebody is getting the share or the other person is getting money when he is or she is selling the shares. Okay, so let's say suppose I am the buyer, I have bought 2 stocks of HDFC Bank. Okay, so I have placed an order. And I can place the order only in the market hours. Okay, so what's the market hour? Does anyone know what is the market hour? So these are the market hours from Monday to Friday. Okay, so let's say suppose, take a simplified example of yesterday. Yesterday was Friday. Okay, so on Friday I placed an order of buying 2 HDFC Bank stocks. Okay, similarly, let's take an example of some other person, any one of you. Okay, so let's say Sai actually put an order of selling 2 HDFC Bank stocks. So naturally you would feel that I have put orders, so when will the 2 stocks come into my demat account? This is one question. The question which Sai will ask, when will the money of HDFC Bank will come that I have sold will come into my account? That's where the concept of trade settlement comes. Okay, it's a process where shares that have been bought by an investor comes into his demat account, and shares that have sold by an investor, money come into his demat wallet or the bank account. Okay, this is known as trade settlement. Now let's learn about this in Hindi or understand this in Hindi. अब सिंपल सी बात है, आप स्टॉक मार्केट में ऑर्डर प्लेस करेंगे. स्टॉक मार्केट आपको सबको पता है कि वहाँ पर हम स्टॉक्स खरीदते हैं और बेचते हैं. तो आपने खरीदने का मान लीजिए 2 स्टॉक्स का ऑर्डर प्लेस किया, तो आपने आज ऑर्डर प्लेस किया. ओके, मान लीजिए आपने आज क्या तारीख है, 30 सितंबर. ओके, सो 30 सितंबर को आपने ऑर्डर प्लेस किया. अब ट्रेड सेटलमेंट में यूजुअली होता क्या है, वो आपके जो 2 स्टॉक्स आपने खरीदे हैं वो तुरंत आपके डीमैट अकाउंट में नहीं आते हैं. इट टेक्स टाइम. इट टेक्स एटलीस्ट प्रीवियसली इसको लगता था कम से कम 2 दिन. तो जब आप ट्रांजैक्शन करोगे उसके बाद 2 वर्किंग डे खत्म होने के बाद आपके अकाउंट में HDFC स्टॉक्स आएंगे. सेम केस विद अगर आप जब उस 2 HDFC स्टॉक्स को बेचोगे. ओके, तो जब मान लीजिए आप 2 HDFC स्टॉक्स को बेचते हैं तो तुरंत आपके अकाउंट में पैसा नहीं आ जाएगा, और अगर आएगा भी तो पूरा नहीं आएगा. ओके, कम से कम जो सेबी ने मैंडेट कर रखा है 2 वर्किंग डे का, 2 वर्किंग डे जब हो जाएंगे पूरे, उसके बाद ही आपके अकाउंट में पूरा पैसा आएगा जो आपने बेचा है, जिस भी प्राइस पे बेचा है. इसको हम कहते हैं ट्रेड सेटलमेंट प्रोसेस. जब ये पूरा ट्रेड एक्चुअली पूरा हो जाए, मान लीजिए जब जो आपने स्टॉक खरीदे हैं वो आपके अकाउंट में आ जाए, और जो आपने पैसे जो स्टॉक्स बेचे उसका पैसा आपके पूरे उसमें आ जाए, और दोनों पार्टीज की तरफ से कुछ लायबिलिटीज ना बचे. इसे कहते हैं ट्रेड सेटल. ट्रेड इज सेटल्ड. ओके, now that we've understood what's the concept of trade settlement, now we'll understand what was the previous situation of trade settlement, what used to happen, what is happening, and what SEBI is trying to do in context of trade settlement. So previously trade settlement cycle was T+2, where T is transaction date. Now take a simple example, okay, which is if your transaction date is Monday. Okay, so based on this cycle, your trade will be settled on Wednesday. It will take 2 days. मान लीजिए आपका पहली वाली साइकिल के हिसाब से अगर आपने ट्रांजैक्शन मंडे को किया तो आपका ट्रेड वेंसडे को सेटल होगा. ओके, SEBI has changed this to T+1 day, which is a remarkable feat. Not every stock market exchange is doing this. That means whatever transaction that you do, it will be settled the next day, Tuesday. Okay, ये अभी चल रहा है. This is right now. Okay. Now, what is the circular is all about? Circular is trying to tell that we are planning it. अब आप date तो छोड़ ही दो. Now, please leave the date. Okay. SEBI is trying to do the settlement in 1 hour. Okay. They are not even trying to do, days. Days are gone. Now, SEBI is trying to do in 1 hour settlement. This what SEBI is trying to propose. That means if you place the order, as I've already told you, the market hours is 9:15 to 3:30. Okay, so suppose if you place the order at 10 o'clock, then your trades will get settled by 11 o'clock. And this is a very remarkable feature because it will increase the liquidity, because once the trade gets settled, because usually right now what happens is you have to wait. Okay, if you do the transactions that I've already told you, that HDFC Bank, if you sold, then you will get your money tomorrow, the whole money. But if the settlement is only within an hour, then after 1 hour, you will get your money back. Okay, so I hope you understand how much, remarkable what SEBI is trying to do in terms of stock market. अभी तक किसी को कोई confusion? ये ट्रेड सेटलमेंट साइकिल में अगर कंफ्यूजन है प्लीज आस्क. ओके, आई कैन अगेन एक्सप्लेन इन हिंदी. इफ देयर इज कंफ्यूजन मेरे को बता देना एक बार. बट प्लीज ये 3 न्यूज है, 3 न्यूज को हम अच्छे से समझेंगे. Okay, because concepts समझना बहुत important है. Okay. So see what's the SEBI's plan. Okay, so SEBI chairperson, you remember these things, these trivia also. So who's the SEBI chairperson? Okay, because such things can come into phase 1 examination. Okay, so these are the highlights. It says that India had moved towards T+1. Okay, as I've already told you, right now we are working on T+1, but SEBI is saying that we are talking about 1 hour settlement. Okay, and what do you think after 1 hour what SEBI is trying to achieve with this? So SEBI is moving towards going into instantaneous settlement. That means one day will come where whenever you place an order, that will instantly be settled. That means if you buy HDFC stock, your demat account will be credited with to HDFC bank stock. Okay, so same case with if you sell HDFC bank stock, you will get the money instantly. So this is what SEBI's end goal is with respect to trade settlement. Next is very generic news. I don't think I have to tell you anything with respect to this. This is just like a moral suasion that any regulator talks about whatever is happening in the industry. So same cases with RBI. RBI is saying that, as you all know, fintech innovation or fintech companies are growing at a rapid pace in our country. So RBI is saying you all establish a self-regulatory infrastructure or self-regulatory organization or self-regulatory rules and regulations, so that practices that you guys are doing must remain ethical, must remain towards customer, and avoid unethical practices, which includes mis-selling, which includes cornering, which includes monopolizing tendencies. So this is just a moral suasion. I don't think you need to understand, or there is something which is for understanding. Okay, so there are only these 3 circulars there. Now let's move on to the important news, and especially for the NABARD examination, all the statistics that we are gonna discuss today are very important. Okay, please, all the pointers that I will be repeating again and again, you might feel like that we are focusing mostly on PDF, but because there is a reason behind this. Okay, so the first news is about the recent quarter GDP figures have arrived. It says GDP grow 7.8% in Q1. So first of all of you tell me who releases the GDP data. Which organization releases GDP data? Who remembers it? GDP का डेटा कौन निकालता है? कौन सी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन निकालती है? MOSPI. Which specific organization? That means, yes, M&M is right. Yes, Pramya is right. NSO. Okay. So these trivial details you must learn. Okay. So we'll focus on most important statistics. And why am I telling you? मैं आपको क्यों बोल रहा हूँ कि ये important है? Because इसके जो अगला वर्जन आएगा regarding Q2 GDP data that will come after NABARD examination. Okay, so naturally this data becomes important. So first important key thing, that Indian economy grew 7.8%, and this, if some of you who have done the previous RBI monetary policy committee report that we have done in June, you might have remembered that we talked about that 8% Q1 GDP was predicted by Reserve Bank of India. Okay, so that's why they are saying that this is a bit less from the what RBI has predicted, but still it is very much higher. Okay, और इसकी वजह से मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, इसकी वजह से because of this most of the projections that most of the financial institutions and other financial companies have, you know, changed their projection with respect to India's GDP. Okay, they have increased their projection with respect to India's GDP. Okay, so there's nothing much more in this rather than 7.8%. Remember this 7.8%. So this is the general projection. Remember this flow chart. It is going like this. Okay. So whenever a question, if it comes, like UPSC used to ask, trend-based questions. Okay. What are trend-based questions? They will mention a statement that GDP is growing at a constant rate, or GDP is growing at a, or GDP per capita income is growing at a constant rate. So from the trend itself, you will see nothing constant is visible here. Then that statement becomes wrong. And that comes your answer, 7.8%. Okay. Now next is with respect to agriculture. So agriculture growth at this quarter is 3.5%. You have to remember this, 7.8%, 3.5%. I will, you know, keep on asking you these data whenever, you know, we'll go much deeper into this session. So please remember this, 3.5%. It says that it's an increase from 2.5% from the same period previous year. Okay. But mostly, as all of you know, agriculture has remained in this trajectory of 2.5% to 3.5% growth rate since many years. Okay. So this reflects the stagnancy of, and apart from objective paper, okay, this is very important if you can utilize such concepts in your descriptive answers. Okay. Whenever a question comes on agriculture, you mention that right now agriculture is growing at 3.5%, whereas other sectors or India's national GDP is growing at 7.8%. So there is a huge disparity in between these two figures. Next is gross tax revenue, which includes, you know, revenue from direct as well as indirect tax. It says that it grow only 2.8%. And remember these both figures, 2.8%, 8.9 trillion in quarter one. Okay. So this is with respect to figures. And they are saying that it grew only 2.8%. Why do you think it could be? So first of all, primary reason can be high base effect. The concept of base effect, I've already told you in previous sessions that there is already a high base. We can only be achieve, you know, a little bit higher than that because we are already higher, you know, doing much above our potential. But, you know, we see higher growth when we have low base effect, and low base effect usually come during a crisis such as COVID-19, where our GDP could only grow a little bit. And next year when we resume our services, then naturally we saw 20% growth. Okay, so this is the concept of high base effect, because of which the growth rate is 2.8%. Another reason that this news is talking about, that why, you know, tax revenue growth rate is not that much high. They are saying while indirect taxes have received, you know, and are showing buoyancy with respect to tax, direct taxes are not being collected that much. And if I ask you why direct taxes are collected not in this quarter, and it is usually, if you study the tax, okay, it is usually in the last quarter direct tax collection skyrockets. Can anybody tell me why, you know, direct tax collection skyrockets in quarter 4? Hi Karthik, how are you? Karthik, tell me, all of you tell me why this direct tax collection, you know, grow in quarter 4. I've already, you know, marking whatever is important for you to read in this PDF. Okay, as I'm already telling you, these figures are important. Please remember this. Yes, Pramya is correct. Last date submission, because we have a tendency to, you know, submit all our taxes in the end stage, only when we calculate enough, and because we also don't know the future, all of the people who are, whose companies are not paying taxes, where they are self-dependent with respect to taxes, they actually pay at the end, whenever the whole year is there, completed, and they can easily calculate how much income they have generated at the end of year. Okay, so that's why these are the two reasons. First reason is high base effect. Second reason is dampened direct tax collection. माने पहला हाई बेस इफेक्ट की वजह से टैक्स रेवेन्यू का ग्रोथ ज्यादा नहीं मिला है. दूसरे रीजन ये है कि डायरेक्ट टैक्स का कलेक्शन इस क्वार्टर में बहुत कम हुआ है आपको, लेकिन ये डायरेक्ट टैक्स का कलेक्शन क्वार्टर 4 में बहुत मिल जाएगा. सो लेट्स, वी डोंट हैव टू वरी अबाउट दीज थिंग्स, बट प्लीज रिमेंबर व्हाट्स द figures. Next is about core sector output to 8% in July. 8% is still a very good number. Okay, although we have declined from 8.3% to 8%, as we discussed in our previous sessions when we were discussing in context of August, we discussed about June data 8.3 to 8%. Okay, so remember this 8% data. So before going further, all of you tell me what's the GDP figure and also tell me what's agriculture growth rate. What's the growth rate that we discussed in context of GDP and what's the growth rate in context of agriculture. And apart from that, these two are very simple. Apart from that, if you can tell me what's the sectoral contribution of agriculture to whole GDP, industry to whole GDP, as well as services to whole GDP. Please tell me this also. 7.8 is the correct answer with respect to GDP. Okay, agriculture is correct answer with respect to 3.5 is correct answer with respect to agriculture. 7.8 is national GDP growth rate. Okay, now what do you think is the agriculture contribution, sectoral contribution to India's GDP? Same with industries and services. Try to tell me. Right? Can't recall. Chalo, at least give me a random number. At least give me a rough figure. Try to give me a rough figure. Nana, 3, how can agriculture only contribute 3% to whole GDP? India's GDP is divided into agriculture, industry. Although I know that agriculture is not growing that much, but Baba, 3%, not that much low. Services. So I'll tell you, for industry it is 31%. Okay, and for services it is something like 50.9 or 50.8%. And now calculate or give me agriculture. Now you can easily calculate, solve, deduct both of them from 100. You will easily get the agriculture contribution. No issues, saying. No issues. Anyways, we are trying to learn and we are trying to, remember each and every figure, because remembering figures is anyway very much different. Yes, Pramya, correct. Okay, so just remember these rough figures: 18%, 31 and 50 point something. So these are various latest reports with respect to, sectoral contribution. Okay, or any figure that you find related to recently like this, please try to remember. Now let's move on to the next news, which is about growth forecast. As I've already told you that because India's latest NSO figures came and it talked about India's 7.8 GDP growth rate, and because of this various institutions have changed their forecast with respect to India's GDP. So this is also very important that you learn these things. Very important, please learn that Moody is telling us that calendar year growth rate of India will be 6.7%. Now, if you can see from the figure, I'll zoom it further. I hope now you can see clearly. Yes. Okay, so as you can see, it has been increased by Moody from 5.5% to 6.7%. And this is very huge, almost 1.2%, not almost, exactly 1.2% more than their previous projection. Okay, while they have exaggerated their previous, so they have reduced it. Okay, but you can see the average what is coming out, it is around 6.4 or 6.3%, which we are trying to get in the end. But please remember this, especially the Moody and Nomura. Now next is GST. Okay, as was the case in gross tax revenue collections that we discussed, and we discussed that how direct tax collection is very much low, but indirect taxes are still very fine. Okay, so as you can see from here, GST tax collection increases 11%. 11%. First of all, they incorporate various type of factors, and these factors normally includes their internal data, their own equations, as also India's internal data that are being generated. So first data is of NSO, other data is of RBI projection. So they utilize that much data, not much important for our understanding. We just only have to remember what's the projection. Okay. So in context of GST, as you can see, 11% growth rate is there. Please remember this 11% growth rate. Also remember 1.5 trillion was collected. Okay, and this is collection of August, because as you all know, 1.5 trillion is becoming a usual norm in context of GST collection. Previously we used to get 90,000 crores, 1 lakh crores, but right now 1.5 is normal in nowadays. So in context of, if M&M is asking, only few institutions updated their projection, because whenever they're in context of IMF, ADB and other bank reports, they clearly come up with reports, and whenever they will come up with reports, no institution I'm telling will leave such reports. Okay, so anyways you will get to know if there has been any change with respect to projections of these institutions. Okay, so this is GST collection, which is 11%, also 1.59 trillion in August 2022. Before going further, please let's recall what was the gross tax revenue collection of Q1. Tell me the number and also tell me the growth rate. Let's try to recall everything so that this class is more than enough for you to remember everything. %7.8% is GDP. I am asking about gross tax revenue, where we discussed about high base effect was the main reason because of which the tax growth rate was very much low. Yes, science correct, 2.8% was the growth rate. That is very much easier, and 8.9 trillion. Very good. This is what we want, so that we learn these statistics here itself. Okay, and remember this 11% and 1.59 trillion in August. Okay, and before we go on to other topics, let's first understand a little bit of GST Council also, because that is also very much important, at least the static portion. some bit things we'll understand. Okay. So all of you tell me, who's the chairperson of GST Council? Yes, Sai is right. 50th GST Council took place. Who is normally the chairperson of GST Council? As per Constitution also. Yes, Finance Minister. Okay. And all of you tell me, what is the Constitutional Amendment Act? What is the number which laid the foundation of GST in India? And also we will discuss how does voting happens or any decision happens with respect to, in the GST Council, and what is the vote percentage provided to center as well as states. So with respect to Constitutional Amendment Act, who gave the answer? Sai is correct. Karthik is correct. 1-0. First Constitutional Amendment Act. Now tell me about the voting. How much decision is taken when is this a 50-50, more than 50% you need to come up with, or anything? Any decision has to be taken by a consensus of 3/4 of the GST Council members. Okay, so remember this, 75% members must agree, then only that any decision can take place. Okay, and voting for center, the number of votes is 1/3, and for states it is 2/3. This is the voting distribution, and this is the way in which decision of GST Council is taken. So please remember these static details also, because any of these details can come in the examination, so that you will be prepared for static concepts also, along with, anyways, current we are doing. Okay, so if you want to note it down, you can note it down, otherwise you can again see this video. Let's move on to the next thing, which is manufacturing PMI at 3-month high in August. So 3-month high is nothing that much, it's a quarter high, but at least we understand that what is the value. Okay, and these values are not that much important. First of all, it's not a government institution that is releasing such type of details, but it is essential to understand whether this means expansion or not. Any value that is above 50 is known as expansion in manufacturing, and any value that is below 50, that tells you about contraction in manufacturing. When we talk about contraction, that we are producing less from the previous quarter, or we are producing, and when the expansion, producing more than the previous quarter. PMI is released by S&P Global. I hope this is clear. Next is sorry, give me one. This is a very important news, although nothing is there for you to remember in context of current affairs, but the concept of P notes or participatory notes is very important. This question gets come again and again in RBI as well as SEBI examination. So let's understand what do we mean by participatory notes. Okay, and this I will explain one in Hindi as well as in English. Okay, for everyone to understand this concept. Participatory notes, first of all, let's understand the context behind which participatory notes came into existence. Why do we need participatory notes? And what is this participatory note? Usually, by the definition, it says that it is a offshore derivative instrument. So as you can see from this, that first of all it is an offshore instrument. That means any person who is beyond the Indian boundaries is using it. Okay. Next thing, that it is a derivative instrument. What do we mean by derivatives? Derivatives are financial instruments whose values are derived by an underlying asset. And when we talk about in context of P notes, these instruments, possess or get their value by underlying asset, which is Indian financial assets, which includes equity, which includes stocks of various companies. Okay, so by the definition, P notes are offshore derivative instruments. That means persons who are beyond national boundaries, that means beyond Indian boundaries, located in some other country, be it USA, if they want to invest in Indian equity, they can use such P notes. But there is a very clear strategy, or they can easily go and register with various stock exchanges and they can easily invest in Indian stock market. Then what's the need of P notes? P notes arrived because if any investor want to invest in Indian equity without registering with SEBI. Okay, so if me as an investor want to invest in Indian securities, but I don't want to disclose my information and I don't want to register in SEBI because of various compliances, then I can refer to using P notes. Okay, and I will explain to you how this is done. I'm coming. I'm telling you each and everything. Wait. Okay. So first of all, we've understood that P notes is critical for investors that don't want to register themselves with SEBI. Okay, and they can invest directly in equity stocks. Now the natural question comes: who releases these P notes? Okay, if we are not registering with any entity that is registered in India, okay, then from who we are taking or from who we are buying participatory notes. So here comes the role of foreign institutional investors. These investors are registered with SEBI because they itself are doing transactions or investments in Indian stock market. These investors issue participatory notes. Okay, so let's take a simple example of HDFC Bank. And let's take an example of Sai or Karthik, anyone who is located in USA and they want to invest they want to buy 2 stocks of HDFC Bank. So what this institutional investor will do, they will issue a participatory note that generates its value based on 2 HDFC stocks. Right now what HDFC stocks value is around, let's say, I guess 1500 or something is there. So this participatory note will be of value 3000 and that will change based on the price of HDFC stock will change. Okay. So this is the concept of how P notes is getting bought and sold. But what about monitoring? Okay, SEBI must also understand about that what transaction is happening or not. Then this financial institutional investor actually provide information. And what information specific it provides to SEBI? It provides only transactional data. What do we mean by transactional data? That these 2 stocks have been bought in USA or these stocks have been sold from USA. Only such type of data this foreign institutional investor provides to SEBI. That means the anonymity that these participatory notes provide is still remains credible. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So M&M was asking who monitor these transactions. This is the process with respect to monitoring of transactions. SEBI only gets information regarding what transaction, or that means which stocks are getting changed their hands. ओके और एक बार मैं जल्दी से हिंदी में बता देता हूं और अच्छे से समझ में आ जाएगा. सो पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट्स की ज़रूरत केवल तब पड़ी, और पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट्स उन लोगों के लिए है जो इंडिया के बाहर लोकेटेड है. उनको अगर इंडियन स्टॉक्स में खरीदारी करनी है और बिना अपनी आइडेंटिटी रिवील किए और बिना सेबी से रजिस्टर किए, ओके, उन लोगों के लिए पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट्स एक बहुत बढ़िया फाइनेंशियल इंस्ट्रूमेंट है. और ये काम कैसे करता है? एक फॉरेन इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर है, एंड इसके एग्जाम्पल हो सकते हैं जैसे डॉइश बैंक ले लो आप, जर्मनी वाला बैंक. ओके, डॉइश बैंक बहुत ट्रांजैक्शंस करता है इंडियन इक्विटी में, और डॉइश बैंक पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट्स भी इशू करता है. और पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट्स स्टैंडर्ड बेसिस पे इशू होते हैं. जैसे मान लो 10 HDFC बैंक स्टॉक का पार्टिसिपेटरी नोट इशू हुआ, तो जो भी इसकी वैल्यू है उस बेसिस पे एक फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर ने इसको खरीद लिया. ओके, और इसकी वैल्यू चेंज होती रहेगी जैसे जैसे इसका जो अंडरलाइंग एसेट है, माने जो चीज़ जिस बेसिस पे आपने खरीदा है, ये HDFC बैंक खरीदा है, तो HDFC की प्राइस चेंज होगी तो इसकी वैल्यू चेंज होती रहेगी. ओके, और HDFC बैंक जितना भी डिविडेंड देगी या जितना भी और स्टॉक स्प्लिट और जो भी कॉर्पोरेट एक्शंस होते हैं, वो सारे एक्शंस के बेनिफिट आपको मिलते चलेंगे. इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है. इसमें बस फायदा ये है कि आपकी एनोनिमिटी मेंटेन्ड है, आपको कोई जान नहीं सकता. सेबी बिल्कुल नहीं जान सकता कि आप की आइडेंटिटी क्या है, आप कहाँ से हो तो आप जान सकते हो, बट नाम पता कुछ नहीं पता सकते. ओके, क्योंकि फॉरेन इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर माने डॉइश बैंक केवल एक इंफॉर्मेशन देता है सेबी को कि क्या ट्रांजैक्शन एक्चुअली हुए. क्या ट्रांजैक्शन हुए मतलब कि HDFC बैंक के 10 स्टॉक बिके या 10 स्टॉक क्या कहते हैं खरीदे गए. केवल ये ट्रांजैक्शंस होते हैं. ओके, और इस न्यूज इन दिस न्यूज वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट participatory notes. Because of participatory notes, there is a rise in investment visible in India since December 2017. Okay, and I will tell you one incident. In 2017, sorry, not in 2017, 2007, just before the global financial crisis, SEBI actually tried to regulate participatory notes. SEBI said in its annual general meeting that we will try to regulate participatory notes. We will try to disclose information of participatory notes. And after watching or after hearing about this news, stock market plummeted, -8 to 9%. So SEBI actually backtracked its decisions because, stock market was not liking the, benefit which was taken away by the SEBI of anonymity. Next is Manrega demand rises 20% on low August rains. That means August break is there and various rural employment issue is going on there, because of which Manrega demand is actually rising. People are not getting jobs. Okay, the usual agriculture work that these agricultural laborers used to get, because of delayed rains, okay, they are not getting those jobs, and because of which demand for Manrega is rising. So what is important for us to remember here is just the static information of Manrega. So I hope all of you remember this. First of all, it's a legal guarantee which provide every adult member of rural household and what's the benefit? What's the guarantee is about? How many days of work? How many days of work is provided under Manrega? Does anyone remember? Yes, 100 days. Okay, 100 days of what type of work? Skilled or unskilled? Yes, unskilled or manual labor. Okay, so important thing, first of all, it's a legal guarantee. Every adult member of rural household, 100 days unskilled manual labor. Okay, I hope this is clear. So these things are important, not that much data, because such as these things are dynamic data that keeps on changing, and also not that much very important from exam perspective. Next, this is very important, which is interoperability of DPIs, maybe long-term goal for G20. Okay, so what do we mean by DPI? As this year's economic survey also focused more upon DPI, digital public infrastructure. Okay, also this topic is very much critical for you to understand, or for your descriptive portion in NABARD as well as RBI. And specific thing with respect to this digital public infrastructure such as interoperability becomes important. Nothing is there in context of current affair news, but the major thing here is that this is the goal with which government is actually working. That means they are trying to make Indian digital public infrastructure interoperable with world's or global digital public infrastructure. And what the government is doing for this, they are actually providing all the open source code of these digital public infrastructure that we have built for other people or for other countries to adopt and change on the basis of their needs and necessities. Okay, and what we as a country is asking with those countries is that please make your own digital public infrastructure, but please make it interoperable so that the trade also gets increases. We as a country, if we want to do trade with your nation, if we if the both countries infrastructure, especially the financial infrastructure, is interoperable, then most of the trade becomes very much fluid, and this is very much evident in case of UPI. Now I asked the same question to every one of you. Since how many days you have not done the transaction via debit card? Previously we used to do transactions through debit card. Just give me a rough number. Since when did you use? What time haven't you used? See, why? Because UPI has made everything very easy for us. Okay. Now the next news is about central bank digital currency. It says that it can fix cross-border payment problems. Okay. So again, this is what we are talking about, interoperability. Okay, so let's say suppose if everything is interoperable, or everything every infrastructure is very much critical, then through UPI, as you also know that UPI is also being made interoperable with CBDC. Okay, so through UPI if we can transact CBDC, and you all know that UPI is being utilized in Dubai and other nations that are still accepting UPI. So through that, see the possibilities how CBDC can enable digital transactions between both countries. Because right now what happens, first of all, you have to do exchange. Okay, and a lot of cash movement is still there. So this is what the news is all about, that this will enable cross-border payments much more. Next news is about shadow banks urge RBI to allow public deposits. Again, data with respect to what? RBI telling NBFCs to reduce their dependence on bank deposits. Okay, because as you all know, NBFC, most of the NBFCs are not taking deposits from public. Okay, they are mostly dependent on either, you know, fund of funds. That means a lending institution will provide funds to NBFCs and then NBFCs will lend to other institutions, or NBFCs are dependent on funds from banks. So RBI as an institution or as a regulator, shadow banks are NBFC banks. Okay, they are not banks in literal sense, but they act like what banks do, which includes some of the banking activities such as lending and other things. Okay, but they don't take deposits from public and they take most deposits from bank. That's what RBI is saying. You have to reduce your dependency from banking deposits. Then these shadow banks are saying and asking RBI, then you are telling us to reduce our dependency from banking deposits, then at least allow us to, you know, take public deposits. At least allow us avenues through which we can distribute our deposits. So this is what the news is all about, nothing major. This is another thing with respect to DPI. It says that India will host global repository of DPI. Okay, that India is saying, the minister is saying that India will host, you know, whatever global digital public infrastructure is being made, we will host such, you know, platform in India. What do we mean by that? If we host such platform, this will enable us to, you know, make our product more interoperable with such type of products. So at the end, the sole game is making every country interconnected, making every citizenry interconnected via interoperability. This is again the news of services PMI slows down in August from 62.3 to 60.1. As I've already told you, this is from S&P Global, not a government institution. Just understand expansion and contraction. But this, if you compare it from the manufacturing one, then you can easily identify that services is growing much more than the manufacturing. India pushes for crypto MDB deals at G20 meet. Okay, so this is a bit of nudge what is happening. Okay, and this is with respect to, since all of you know that G20 meet happened in 9th and 10th of September. Okay, this news doesn't consider, include New Delhi declaration that the G20 in the end come up with. Okay, so here they are actually talking about focusing upon crypto regulations as well as multilateral development bank deals. So they are pushing. So whenever in the next session, when we will discuss specifically New Delhi declaration, we will talk about this. Okay, so that we understand what actually happened or what actually is decided by the all government under summit. Next is working towards 100% cash settlement. It is said by insurance regulator. Insurance regulator is saying, and this is in specific context to medical insurance. Okay, so IRDA is saying that we are aiming towards 100% cashless settlement. That means no involvement of cash should be there. So New Delhi declaration, if there is something that is related to India's agriculture or rural development sector or digital public infrastructure, then that becomes important. Okay. So as I was still telling you about that, they are working towards 100% cashless settlement, although most of the medical insurance is right now being done cashless, but some 10% of the bill is usually either consumables and other heads are collected via cash. Also there is a component of or option of co-payment, okay, which also talks about yes, I will cover it. That's what I'm saying now. I will cover mostly all the components in New Delhi Declaration that are related for NABARD. I will cover that. Don't worry. Okay, so 100% cash settlement they are aiming for. Next is excess liquidity continues ahead of RBI's incremental cash reserve ratio review. So this is the news, very important. We will understand this news, we will understand the concepts. Okay, so first of all, as you can see from the news itself, they are talking about, first of all, RBI ICRR review. ICRR review is coming. What RBI is trying to do. What is ICRR? Incremental cash reserve ratio. Okay, so incremental cash reserve ratio was applied by RBI in July and May 2023 to absorb excess liquidity. Okay, and RBI said at that particular point of time, we will review it at a later date. Okay, and we will see if that liquidity is absorbed. If we want to provide the liquidity back, we can remove this provision. But this news is saying that despite the review date is coming, the economy is still suffering with excess liquidity. Okay, so let's understand what do we mean by incremental cash reserve ratio. Before that, let's understand what is the cash reserve ratio. It says that bank's net demand and time liabilities, some percentage right now, which is 4.5%, okay, of bank's net demand and time liabilities, a bank has to keep in cash or cash equivalents either with themselves in vault or they have to keep them with RBI. This is cash reserve ratio. Okay, and this is done to make bank liquid or to make bank safe in whenever a bank run kind of situation happens. And what do we mean by incremental cash reserve ratio? At that particular point of time, especially in May, RBI to absorb liquidity said, right now whatever NDTL that you are having, let's say suppose 100 crores, the cash reserve ratio is 4.5%. RBI says if this NDTL crosses higher, okay, so let's say suppose 50 crore more amount is added into your net demand and time liabilities, then you have to keep 10% of the amount as reserves. So naturally you have to keep 5 crore right now. That means if there is an increase in your net demand and time liabilities, the cash reserve ratio will also increase. This is the concept of incremental cash reserve ratio. And this was done by RBI because, as you all remember, 2000 rupees notes were taken back. That was the main reason. So RBI thought the liquidity is coming into the system. We have to keep that liquidity within the system. We don't want banks to, lend that much amount of money. So this is the concept of incremental cash reserve ratio. Is this clear to everyone? Any issue in this? Yes, rightly said, M&M. So I guess tomorrow the news will come that how much collection of 2000 rupees note has been done. 99.9999%, as was the case previously. Okay. So this is another report which is of IMF Financial Stability Board. Okay. So this was the paper which was much awaited by various economies of the world. It talked about crypto at length. It says that crypto, first of all, is not very much beneficial for the global monetary situation. Okay, these are assets that don't have underlying value. They are more speculative in nature. Okay, so that's why they can't be a legal tender because it will disrupt monetary policy. Okay, and next thing which IMF said, that its ban is also not easy because it involves various technicalities. Also, it involves various structure of enforcement. You cannot enforce the ban. Okay, people can use VPN, people can use some other tricks to bypass use of crypto. So this is what this news is all about, nothing much important. Next is PM calls for virtual G20 in November. Okay, now that G20 is being done, G20 sorry, G20 is usually for a year. Okay, for a whole year a country is usually assuming the presidency. So India's last session in November will be a digital one. Okay, so tell me, who's the next country that is assuming G20 presidency? Correct, Brazil. And remember, as I was asking you about debit card usage, see, the data is also telling you about this. Debit card usage slow for 3 years, UPI transaction up 428%. Okay, so you can use such type of data in your exams, but right now the data which is keeping on changing, okay, it's not important. So our news is complete. Yes, sorry, my bad. M&M rightly pointed out that it's not G20 anymore, G21, my bad. So the news is complete. If you want to ask any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, we'll meet on Monday, okay, and we'll try to do second part of September. किसी को कोई डाउट है तो आप पूछ लीजिए, वरना मंडे को मिलते हैं, ठीक है? हाँ, RBI might have withdrawn because we are, discussing about this September 1st part news, na? The review was due on September 20th, I guess. Okay, and this news is talking about September 1st. So it might be the case. So Karthik, NABARD report might be telling you about the GDP figure of previous year. Okay, this is the latest data of Q1 specifically. Okay, we are discussing. So please don't get confused that whether we are seeing GDP figure annually or quarterly. Understand that we are discussing quarterly data released by NSO, okay, which says 7.8% growth of Q1. I guess Ashok sir have already told you with respect to NABARD report. So if it will come in the news, I will try to focus or I will try to complete that. Otherwise, after this news, okay, we'll be having some time. I will cover that also. Don't worry. Any other thing? International. So, Sai, you told me that you are already having this crack grade B course of RBI or NABARD. If you are a paid member, then I have already covered international organization in the paid classes. So you can see those live classes also. So see the lecture, na? At least see the lecture, because in the lecture I have exactly told what is important for the NABARD perspective or from the RBI perspective. If you see the lecture, you will understand what is important and what is not. Any other thing? Thank you, Karthik. I am glad that it is helping you. Okay, chalo, thank you everyone. Okay, we'll meet on Monday. Until then, keep practicing, okay.